So then I now have the pleasure of introducing our speaker here. So she spent the past 15 years leading global transformation and global teams across different parts of IBM, including F&O, GTO, and TNO, as well as which is part of F&O, of course, and the CEO's office. Currently, she's a part of our transformation and operations strategy team, focusing on client zero storytelling. But today, she's here to talk about a topic that she has taught to over 80,000 professionals and students worldwide, and that is unlocking your value and owning your career. And so please welcoming Ashley to the stage. Join me.
Thank you. Okay, I'm excited to be here today talking about, honestly, it's my favorite subject, but I have to confess, this is nothing groundbreaking, what we're going to talk about today. Many of you will think it's kind of common sense, but the thing is, I've been teaching this topic for 11 years, and even I myself need reminders that I need to put this into practice. So I'm really glad you're here because for the next 25 minutes, we're going to talk about unlocking your value and owning your career. But what that really means is being an advocate for yourself. And so today, you're going to get information and hopefully inspiration for you to be an advocate for yourself and take your career into your own hands. And what does it mean to be an advocate for yourself? It's two things. It's one, understanding your value and the impact that you make in your job. And then two, it's not just that you know your value, but that you are brave enough to communicate it to people who are making decisions about your career. So we're going to talk about how to do that today. But first, I mentioned I have been teaching this for 11 years, so to thousands of people. And in every single session we've done, I hear the same three obstacles that people perceive as being in their way of really advocating for themselves and putting themselves out there. So today, while we go through this content, I would like to debunk these three, what I call excuses. So here's what they are. Excuse number one, my work should speak for itself. I know people believe this. People are taught this, and some people feel this to their very core. I want to make an argument against it today. My leader will promote me when the time is right. Does your leader even know you want a promotion? We're going to talk about that. And this is uncomfortable. What if people think I'm bragging or full of myself for talking about my accomplishments? That's the hardest one for people to get over. So let's get into it. We are talking about you as an IBMer employee. Now, if you are a leader or a manager, hopefully you can take some nuggets today to help share with your team to encourage them to advocate for themselves. But I'm talking about you as an employee today. And we're going to talk about why, what, when, and how of advocating for yourself. So why? Why should you talk about your accomplishments and promote? There we go. Okay, why should you promote your work? Do you know where I'm supposed to be pointing this? This way, thank you. Okay, to have a competitive advantage, IBM needs to remain competitive in the market. We also need to remain competitive in our teams and across IBM. How can we continue to raise the bar and make sure that our skills are relevant? All of you are here today for that very reason, to continue to grow in your career and in your roles. If you don't advocate for yourself, who will? You have to be the first person who believes in what you're doing and the impact that you make. And how will someone know? I had a team of 25 people at one point. I would have loved to know what every one of my team members was doing, but it just wasn't possible. So I had to encourage them in our monthly one-on-ones to bring forward their list of accomplishments, their challenges, their ideas, because that's the only way for me to get full visibility into the impact that we're making. And I'm going to give you some examples here in a little bit of what we found during those conversations. But why else should you be promoting your work or advocating for yourself? There are actually some negatives that could come along with you not doing it. There could be a perception that you're not interested in the work you're doing, or that you're not confident that you're actually making an impact or making a difference, that you don't understand how what you're doing equates to IBM's goals, or maybe if you're not talking about your accomplishments, maybe you don't have any. We know that's not true, but if people don't know about what you're working on and the impact it's making, then it's not doing anybody any good. I actually, to this point, I did this session with 250 IBM consultants last month. And a senior partner reached out to me after we did the session, and she said, "Thank you so much. I realized I hadn't shared with my boss what I did this quarter and some of the results that I drove." And she shared with me an email thread where she sent him her results, and he replied thanking her and saying, "Wow, can you tell me more about what you did here? I think your colleagues would really benefit from that." So she wasn't just advocating for herself there and showing her results. It ended up benefiting her whole team because she was willing to put her accomplishments out there. So those are some negative perceptions if you're not willing to share your accomplishments. But here's some positives. To get a higher rating at the end of the year, to get a promotion that you've been seeking, to get more money. All of these are reasons why you might want to be an advocate for yourself. Only you can decide what your why is. Once you have decided it, though, that's when you have to take an action. You need to make sure that you are communicating your wants and needs for your career with the people who are making decisions that can help you get what you want. I will give you an example. Just a few years ago, I've been teaching this class for over 10 years. I made the mistake of assuming my boss knew what I wanted in my career. I just finished up a project we rolled out Salesforce, IBM Sales Cloud, across our sales organization, and I did the communications to lead that rollout for my vice president at the time. And I was ready to kind of start looking for my new role, so I didn't really see my future as part of that direct team I was on. So I set up a 30-minute career conversation. My mentor actually suggested that I do this. I set up a 30-minute career conversation with the vice president I just did this big project for to see where he saw me as part of his leadership team. And he said, "This is great timing. I'm actually taking your name forward to our top talent review next week, and I'm going to suggest that you do communications for a senior vice president." Now, I had just done a communications program, which makes sense why he thinks that I probably want to do communications, but that actually did not align with what I wanted in my career. I wanted to have my own team again, and I wanted to own a piece of the business and drive business results. And so because we had this conversation, I was able to communicate to him what my goals really were and what I was really looking for. And so he changed his recommendation, and he recommended me to be a chief of staff to a senior executive. The timing was amazing because 3 weeks later, I was invited to interview for and work for Arvind in the CEO's office. And it's all because I set up that 30-minute conversation with my senior leader to talk about my career. So don't assume that they know what you want. You have to tell them. Okay, you're probably thinking, well, what am I supposed to be telling them or sharing with them? That is the what. Anytime that you receive kudos or thanks, you may think, well, I'm just doing my job. Of course, my client or stakeholder is thanking me. But the thing is, they took the time to send you a note or appreciation for what you did for them. That is worth sharing with your leader. And don't wait until December, your end of year review, to put it in a write-up. Make sure you share it the time that you receive it, because your leader's not making promotion and salary increase decisions at the end of the year. They're making those decisions all year long. So you need to make sure that you're regularly communicating your impact. When you accomplish a milestone or meet a commitment, maybe you delivered a project 2 weeks early and under budget, that's something you want to share. When you show empathy, helpfulness, and compassion, or go above and beyond what is expected. I mentioned how when I was managing 25 people, it was like 5 different small teams. We implemented a monthly one-on-one where as the manager I showed up, I didn't say a word. And the team member came in and they brought their list of accomplishments. The first month we did this, Padma on my team told me a story. And she received a ticket into our queue. And she right away realized the ticket did not belong with our team. We could not resolve this issue. But she also realized that client had been bounced around to 5 different teams already and was probably pretty frustrated. So our process called for her to just send it to the right team. Instead, she picked up the phone and called the client, listened to their frustration, and then she called the right team and she did a warm handoff to make sure that the issue was fixed as soon as possible. I was blown away by the story for 2 reasons. One, she absolutely did all of these things, showed empathy and compassion, went above and beyond, but also she probably had done that 100 times, but I didn't know about it. So this was the first time by kind of forcing them to bring forward their accomplishments, I was able to see the vast impact that my team was having for our clients. What else should you share? When you've made a positive impact for your team, company, or customers, maybe you solved the problem, but then you had an additional idea to address another issue. Anytime that you're making an impact, those are things that you should share because people can learn from them. But it's not all about the amazing, positive things you did. It's also the really hard things you do. If you overcame a challenge, if you were able to bring people together to solve a problem that's really hard, if you were able to get people to see past emotions to really get down to getting to a solution, those are all skills that are so important and valuable and make a huge difference. And those are examples that you should be sharing with your leadership team. All right, so we talked about why, and we talked about what are the types of things you should be sharing with your leaders. Let's talk about when. When should you be an advocate for yourself and for your impact? Obviously in interviews, I think a lot of us will find ourselves in interviews for new roles within IBM or within our careers. And so the interview is absolutely a time that you want to be talking about the value you drove, the impact you made on your clients and your colleagues. In one-on-one meetings with your manager, hopefully you all have regular check-ins with your manager that are not just project status opportunities. And if you don't, take initiative to set up time. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, and just say, hey, I'd like to, you can even blame me. Say, I just attended this session and they told me I need to, on a regular basis, review my accomplishments with my leader. Would you be okay if I set up 30 minutes? And they're probably not going to say no. So the point is to make sure you have a focused conversation around either your career or your skills or your accomplishments. Don't let it just run into another project status meeting. And then just reiterating at the time that you do these things. When is when you receive a kudos or thanks, accomplish a milestone, or overcome a challenge. Making sure that you're frequently communicating, consistently reviewing throughout the year the impact that you're making. All right, we're moving on to the how. I'm checking the time. The how is the hardest part. But hopefully today you'll get some tips and get some inspiration of how you can communicate your impact. Some things to ask. How can I relate what I do back to the impact and results it's driving? So why is this important? What did it do? Who did you help? And what improvement did it make? And I am doing a breakout session on creating your personal value proposition, and we will actually walk through that exercise. But another question is there data that you can use to show the improvement that you made or your achievement? Are there quantifiable measurements? If there's not data that exists today, is there something you can put in place to measure your impact? And how can you show and measure the value of your work? So qualitatively, it could be feedback, surveys. Quantitatively, it can be showing process improvements that you've made. And we'll talk about that. But one analogy I do want to share with you is I'm not talking about the tasks that you complete. Your list of accomplishments or even your resume should not be the tasks that you're responsible for. So I'll explain. It should be all about the outcomes. So Lily Reisable, I don't think she's here today, but she gave me this analogy a couple years ago, and I have stolen it and used it ever since. And it's the cup of coffee. A lot of people think coffee is the outcome. The coffee is not the outcome. The outcome is the energy you get from it, the taste you get, maybe the experience of going to a coffee shop and talking to your favorite barista. Those are the outcomes. The coffee is just how you got there. So if we use this in IBM world, use me for an example. I created slides on being an advocate for yourself at IBM. It's true. It's what I did. But does that really show the impact? What if I said, I inspired over 10,000 IBMers to communicate the value of their work and drive better results for their company? That is what it means for me to create those slides, right? Another example, and this is actually an example. I had a mentee who is a data scientist, and when I first met her, I asked, what do you do? And she said, well, I create dashboards. I said, well, what value do your stakeholders get out of them? And she couldn't really answer some of those questions. So I encouraged her to go back and do some stakeholder interviews to better understand like the value she was bringing. And so originally she would say something like, she developed this feature for a dashboard. After she did those stakeholder interviews and really understood how they were being used and the value it brought, it turned out she enabled over 50 executives to measure key business indicators that had never been available before, these insights, and they were able to make better decisions that drove higher revenue. That is the impact that she has as a data scientist in that role. It was not about the tasks that she completed. It was about the outcomes and impact that she drove. This is a formula you could use, accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. If you want to, it needs some help with that, and we'll also work through that in our breakout session as well. All right, let me see, do I have time for, I think I do. I think we can do this. Does anyone want to volunteer? It's like going to be 2 minutes, and you're just going to share about the first job you ever had. It's like a teenager, any job at all. Laura, yes, come up. Yay. I don't know if this is on. I think it might be. All right. What was the first job you ever had?
First job
I don't know.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
First job I ever had, I was a sandwich artist.
A sandwich artist?
I worked at Subway.
Okay, you're already getting an A here. Okay, so when you worked at Subway and you made sandwiches, how did you know you were doing a good job?
People kept coming back.
Okay, return customers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If your leader or your manager was making decisions on who's going to get a raise, why would they pick you?
In that job, it required friendliness, fast turnaround, being able to close the store, which I look at myself. I was 16 and I was closing a Subway shop, like by myself at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like the terror in my parents. Probably just reliability.
Right.
You know?
So obviously, when you're 16, you're not thinking, how can I show my value and measure the impact I'm making? But now, looking back, are there some ways that you could have used data to show your value to your boss so that when they were making decisions on who gets a raise, that you would have been considered?
Probably, yeah.
Any ideas?
Maybe how many customers I had, how many times I closed a shop when nothing was ever reported stolen.
Yeah, yep. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe it's revenue, like how many number of sandwiches you made.
Sandwiches per hour.
Any number of complaints you
I'll
got.
let you make that chart.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. That's just one example of no matter what job you have, you can think about ways that you can measure your impact. So sandwich shop, I'm going to give whatever.
I like that.
Yes.
Sandwich artist.
I did this exercise with a group of IBM interns one time, and this intern, Brittany, shared with me that she worked at a summer camp. She was a camp counselor. And I asked her the same questions. How did you know you're doing a good job? And she said parents were happy. It was kind of like pulling teeth to get it out of her, like the impact she was really making. She said, oh, I took kids to activities. But when I really kept asking, she was responsible for the lives of 30 kindergartners, and she took them to learn life skills like swimming. So that's a much better way to say it than, oh, I just took kids to activities. And then when I asked her, how did you know you're doing a good job? She said parents were happy. And I asked, did the camp owners, did they know you were doing a good job? And she said, I think so. And I said, well, how many camp counselors were there? And she said there were 50. I said, well, if they were making a decision on who they were going to keep on next year or who was going to get a more senior position or more money, why would they pick you? And her eyes got really big, and she realized that they wouldn't have because she wasn't communicating her value at all. And so we talked through what are some ways she could have done that. She could have talked about how many of her kids came back the next year, how many brought along siblings or friends. So we just started thinking about ways that she could have measured her impact. And obviously, when you're a teenager, you're not thinking about that. But now that we are all in the corporate world, we absolutely, in any job that we have, should be able to measure our impact and share that. And the thing is, going back to our excuses, data is the best way to get over being uncomfortable and feeling like you're bragging. Because data is just fact. It's not your opinion that you did a great job. It's showing, no, here's the results that I drove. And so I would like to return to our excuses here. My work should speak for itself. I hope you realize that sometimes that's just not the case. It's not possible for your leaders to know every great thing you're doing, and sometimes you have to bring that forward. The second one, my boss will promote me when the time is right. Make sure they know you want a promotion or you want to take on a new job or learn new skills. And then the last one, this is uncomfortable. What if people think I'm bragging? Using data, if you're sharing on LinkedIn or social media about something you're proud of that you did, if you just feel uncomfortable saying, I did this, say we. Even if it was just you, you can still say we, but I would encourage you to take full credit. But if it means sharing it or not sharing it, then say we if it will make you share it. But I also want you just to think about the people whose opinions you feel are going to judge you. Are their opinions worth you not getting what you want in your career? The answer is probably no. So my last thing here is just a call to action to make a plan. Think about what is one or two things you're going to do differently. Is it set up a one-on-one with your manager? Is it keeping track of your accomplishments on a weekly basis? Is it sending an NPS survey out to people who attend a session that you led? When you start to put yourself out there and share your expertise, it starts opening opportunities for you and for other people. And any person in here could be on the stage right now, sharing something that others would learn and benefit from. So find those opportunities to share what you know, because it just broadens your impact even further.